What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle, and pretty excited about today's conversation. I heard this gentleman speak about a couple months or so ago at an event, and said some. I won't spoil it, but said a lot of things that I think a lot of people need to hear. So I wanted to have him on to broadcast it out. But Mr. James Tracy is joining me today. How you doing, James?
Good. How about you?
Good, man. Glad to have you here. Glad you're able to come by and visit
Sure.
us. I know you're not from the Ohio area, but glad I was able to grab you while you're out here visiting.
Yeah, no, not a problem at all. Glad to be here.
Spreading the word.
Mm-hmm.
But usually when I have somebody on for the first time before we get into like our topic at hand and stuff, I like to get a little bit of a background. So originally, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, gosh. Now you got to make me think. I don't remember what I wanted to be when I... Honestly, I don't know. Probably like the same answers all the kids give, a police officer, fireman, something like that. Probably along those lines. I've always enjoyed helping people. So I wanted to do something where I could do that. And yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it. I don't know how to.
Well, you've definitely been doing a lot of that, like I said, when I heard you speak and stuff, but I know you're like a real history buff too. So like when did you get into history?
Oh, I've always loved history ever since I was a kid. We all have our favorite subjects that we enjoy in school. And for me, it was history. Anytime we started talking about the history of our nation, or I've always been a military military nut as well. So I've loved the history of the military and what that involves, and have a great deal of respect for individuals who sacrifice their lives and also their time. That saying where some gave all, but all gave some. So yeah. It's absolutely true. So I've really enjoyed learning about the history, because I'm a firm believer that those who don't understand their history are doomed to repeat it.
Oh, yeah.
And what we're seeing today is nothing new. We've been through, a matter of fact, we went through this not even 70 years ago. Actually, not even that, 50 years ago. 50 years ago, what we're seeing today was perpetuated on the people, but the topics were different, but the process was the same, or is the same. So, yeah. So now it's just, I'm a believer of these things, because for me, I truly believe that if we can understand those foundational principles that the founders wanted us to learn, then we, the people, have the power, like we do.
Oh, yeah.
The Constitution starts off with "we the people." So why in the world do we, the people, relinquishing our power to other individuals who are telling us how to live our lives? That's not how it works.
Exactly.
So
yeah. And so, like, when did you, like, at what age did you discover your love of your country?
Ever since I was a kid, I've always loved the United States. We are deeply privileged to have been born here. I've lived abroad for a couple of years. I went on a church humanitarian mission when I was not even 20 years old, down to South America and to Chile. And, I saw the poverty that those people live in, and I saw how happy they were. And they were thrilled to invite us into their homes, and their homes had dirt floors. So they didn't have the modern conveniences that we have. They had electricity, but a lot of these homes didn't even have plumbing. They still had outhouses. They had other things to that nature. And so when you experience that at such a young age, it really makes you appreciate what you have, and you never ever take anything for granted.
Yeah.
So ever since I was a kid, I've always loved the idea of our nation. I've loved the founding of our nation. The fact of the matter is that the principles are perfect, but the people within it are not.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that everywhere. We're seeing it not only in the United States, but also across the world. And what's interesting is where the United States tends to go, these other countries tend to follow. But we're seeing what's happening with some of these other countries, with how they're getting really crazy, really tyrannical, and what their citizenship is doing, or what their citizens, I should say, are doing to rebel against it. So
Yeah. And I know, like, through your presentation, you have a great knowledge of like what common law, or the real law of the land is supposed to be.
mhm.
When did you get into studying that, and what attracted you to that?
Well, I really started diving in and understanding when all of this started. So last March, I was just like every other good quote unquote citizen. I did what the government told me to do because I believed they had our best interests at heart. Obviously, I think more and more people are realizing that's not true, that there is a ulterior motive. There's another agenda at play here. And so where I really started diving into this was earlier this year. I got connected with a group of really good people back home in Utah who were just like me and had it. And, we thought that our only method for seeking a remedy was through our legislature. And so we got involved with our legislative session. We actually went down to our capital. We spoke with legislatures. We said, we want this stuff to end, and you guys need to legislate a bill to make it end. And that's what we thought we had to do. Little did I know at the time, I was actually learning the foundations that I needed in order to really understand where we can seek that remedy that we're seeking. And the remedy that we need to seek is ultimately it's in the courts.
Yeah.
So when you look at our government and you look at the three branches of the government, you have the legislative, the executive, and you have the judicial. So of those three, in my opinion, the one that has the most power is the judicial, because the judicial can overturn anything that the executive or the legislator does. But the legislature and the executive branch can never overturn anything the judicial branch issues. So I started learning more about who we are as men and women and where we are in that chain. And I started learning about affidavits. I started learning about what they are. I started learning about how they're to be used, how they're used in a common law process, and how you can use that information to make these individuals who are public servants, most of them are, aware that, hey, you're not adhering to your oath to the Constitution that you took when you took this position.
Mm-hmm.
So when I speak with groups, I talk about all the time that there's only three types of individuals that swear an oath to the Constitution. This being former military. Military is one. Public servants are another, and immigrants are the third. So public servants, if you run for public office, be it a school board position, superintendent, even if it's your local tax collector, it doesn't matter what it is, or the code enforcer. If you're in public service, you swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. I'm not just talking about just the United States Constitution. There's also the state constitution you swear an oath to. So whatever state you're in. And in my case, it's Utah. Here we're sitting today in Ohio. So every single public servant swears an oath to that. And whether they are willfully ignorant of what they're doing, and that's the best case scenario, or they know exactly what they're doing, and they're not only breaking the law, they're violating their oath to the Constitution, which is nothing short of treason.
Yes.
And I'm not, please don't get me wrong, I'm not pointing that out, and I'm not saying these people are treasonous actors. What I am saying is that if they uphold these things like money, power, influence over their oath to the Constitution, then what do we have left? So I started learning about how do we make these people aware of this, short of going out and hiring an attorney and paying hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever it would take to move this through a court. And I learned that, well, the first thing I learned is, number one, I don't need an attorney to do that.
Yeah.
I can do this myself. And then the second thing I learned is that affidavits are the way to do that. We put down our truth as we know it. We swear to it under oath that it is our truth. So if essentially what we're saying is, if what I put on this paper is not true, I'm willing to go to jail.
Yeah.
And that's not something that a lot of people take lightly. And then vice versa too. There's also other individuals that when they receive this, they don't think, they don't give it much thought. They just say, oh, this is just another one of these crazy people. but there are ramifications for not paying attention to it. So
yeah, I agree. And then, I mean, this is very timely too, because yesterday we just had an election here in the state. I was working the polls, helping support a veteran military brother of mine who thankfully got elected as our city's mayor here.
Oh, good.
And so we had a lot of good happen with yesterday's election here locally, but then unfortunately the school board didn't go exactly as we wanted to with the conservative, the man that I was trying to support on there. And our kids right now seems like all across the country are under attack.
Yeah.
And even though our person didn't win, as you just said, the people that did win and will be having to take that same oath do work for us, represent us. And now it'd be good for the parents, I know myself to know, and the parents around here locally to know, like, what the process is, what we can do to hold them accountable. I've also tried to share some of the information that I gained from your presentation the first time I saw it. And I'm still trying to learn and don't understand the process as well. But I've got friends that have come up to me and is like, yeah, my job is really enforcing this vaccine mandate.
Yep.
I'm trying to get out of it. I don't know what I can do. It's, it's a private company. So what do I have? And then I even have some friends in the military that are like, man, I don't want to get out. I want to continue to serve, but I don't want to put this, take this and put this in my body that I'm unsure of. I should have a right to say so. And I'm like, I don't know what their options are. So hopefully you have some
I do.
answers for us as we go through this. And if you want to, we can start adding some of your PowerPoint on and explain that, or
yeah, sure. Why don't we can bring it up here and we can chat about that. So why don't you go ahead and bring that up there? So this is the presentation that I presented a few months ago, back in September, I believe is when it was. Yes. And at the time, obviously the school districts were a big concern. These forced jabs or these mandates in order for you to keep your employment wasn't quite at the forefront of everybody's minds, but they are today.
Yeah.
There is some hope. I'll give you a couple of things. A federal district court judge in the District of Columbia, so this is Washington, D.C. This is Swampville, USA. Luckily for us, there is an individual there who does still care about individuals' rights. In that case, that they issued an injunction against President Biden's mandate that if you're a military or a federal employee and you are unjabbed by their deadline, you cannot be fired or you cannot be dishonorably discharged like they were threatening in the military. So that injunction has gone in force. So what an injunction is it's a temporary stop. Basically, it says stop doing this or stop enforcing this. I fully suspect that because these people are as crazy as they are, they're going to appeal this to the Supreme Court. And ultimately, we're going to have some type of a decision come from the Supreme Court. Now, that doesn't help the rest of us, those of us who are working in the private sector.
Yeah.
But what we can do is we can talk about how affidavits work and how that's one of the ways that you can assert your rights as a man or as a woman, and how it is, even though you work for an employer and even though they are paying you money to do a job, they cannot force you to do something that's illegal. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about that.
It just seems like, my friends that I've been talking to, everybody's kind of afraid of rocking the boat. It's like, this is how I feed my kids. This is how I keep the roof over our heads. They don't know what they don't know, and hopefully, we can give them some hope and some information here, as well as, our military members. I've heard talk of even like people's benefits being taken from them.
Yeah.
Even like the veterans in the VA system. I've heard talk of them being threatened that, well, if you want to still receive service here and receive your benefits, got to follow through with this mandate. But real quick, before we get into this, like, what is your definition? What do you know of what what is a mandate?
A mandate is, number one, it's not a law. So let's make sure we are aware of that. A mandate is just a scary word.
Yeah.
And there's just no way around. So you gotta have to think of it this way. And the gentleman that I learned everything I know from, he's actually very close. He lives in the neighboring state of Pennsylvania. He said this, and it made it very simple and easy for me to understand. He's like, listen, if I can't force you to do it, you can't force me to do it. Simple.
Yeah.
Right? So just because I write something down on a piece of paper and I say, Bill, you must do 15 jumping jacks, otherwise you can't walk into my house. I mean, you're going to crumple that paper up and throw it back in my face and say, get out of here. I'm not doing 15 jumping jacks.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm making light of the situation, but you know what I'm talking about here. That is where we are. I mean, the craziness of what they're asking these people to do is they're asking them to commit assault on themselves. They're asking their employers are asking employees to allow them to insult their employees. Oh, and by the way, we want you to help us assault you. Does that make sense to anybody?
No.
You know, and my mentor, the guy I learned all this from, I mean, he's a little more brash than I am. He's an Eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey type of an individual. So if you've met those folks, you know, they're blunt, straight to the point, and have no problem in telling you that this or that is BS or whatever else. But the point remains the same, is that if you have a deeply held belief that injecting some experimental cocktail into your body is going to hurt you, you are under no obligation whatsoever to do it.
Yeah.
Nobody can force you. Now, a lot of these employers are offering quote unquote religious exemptions or accommodations, or medical exemptions or accommodations. I am not opposed to going that direction first because it helps to kick the can down the road. It's not a permanent solution by any means. But if it's what is necessary to buy you some time to stay employed so you can keep a roof over your head and feed your family, then that's necessary to do. Go ahead and do it. However, I do have, and I will see if I can share some stuff here on the screen. I do have some documentation that others have used that has been successful in other states, Maryland, California, New York, some of these other states that are pretty hefty out there, where they have essentially noticed their employer and said, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Employer, even though I'm in an at-will work state, and even though you can fire me because you don't like the color of my shirt this day, does not give you the right or the ability to break the law to fire me. So what you have to do is you have to get this back down to the basics. Can an employer require you to do this? Well, whether you know this or not, you have an employment agreement, an employment contract. And unless it is specifically spelled out in that contract, they cannot do that. The same says, you know, we own you, your body is now ours, and we can tell you what to do with it, which for the most part they do.
Yeah.
But that doesn't go so far as to creating harm or hurting individuals. So this is where it's extremely important to understand, get back to the basics, look at the law, look at the federal law. The federal law is Title 21. And it's Chapter 360, and it's BBB. This is the Emergency Use Authorization Act. It's clear as day in there that if the product is authorized under that, it A, cannot be mandated, B, must be voluntary, and C, you must have informed consent.
Yes.
None of that is taking place. So what's happening here is these employers are more fearful of the federal government than they are of their employees. And the way that we turn that boat around is by empowering our employees to know what's the process and how can I get a resolution to my problem using the people's houses, which are the courts. And that's ultimately what it comes down to.
And then you mentioned informed consent. And for the audience, you want to explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, you got to know what it is. You got to know what's in it. I mean, if you don't have a clue as to what's in the product, how in the world are you going to be able to have informed consent? So the issue you run into is oh, thank you. The issue you run into is when you go into a place where they're doing these inoculations, and that's what they are, and you ask, hey, what's in this stuff? Nobody can tell you because they don't know.
Yeah.
They're deliberately hiding the ingredients, and this is my personal opinion, but I believe it's by design. It's by design like this. So I have seen individuals that I've known that are close to me. A good friend of mine who's not much older than me passed away after receiving this. Other individuals that I know that are family members have had serious adverse reactions. I have a choice. God gave me a brain. I use it. At the end of the day, it's ultimately my choice what goes into my body.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, like, for myself, like, my doctors told me, like, because of certain health issues I got from my time in the military, that I should not take this. She doesn't want to take the chance of, I've had a heart attack in the past. I've actually had the virus, and my, body did what it's supposed to do. I still have the antibodies and stuff.
Yep.
So she's been against me getting it, and I've been personally against doing it as well. But, I've been a fan of music and entertainment, and I've done interviews with musicians and love entertainment and stuff, and would love to go to shows, but now they're putting all these rules to make it. And I've had to make peace with the fact that, well, I love my body and my health and being here for my family more than I love getting a jab just so I can go hang out and be entertained.
And that's the truth. That really is the truth. So if I could do anything with you today, is I could give your viewers some hope, because there is hope. All is not lost. I mean, in the wisdom of our founders, they gave us, we the people, a course. But it's kind of that old saying. I don't know if you've heard this before, but God helps those who help themselves.
Yes.
Right? If you just are sitting around at your couch and are just mad at the world and think, God, fix this, he's just not going to do it, because that's not the way that God operates. God empowers men and women to make change. Those men and women empower others to make change. And when we have a force to be reckoned with, that's when change happens. So this is why I'm on this mission I'm on, is I want to teach as many people what I have learned so that they can replicate it and duplicate it where they are. And they can teach others, and ultimately it's like a wildfire. It just spreads. Yeah.
And you said that during your presentation I was at, and that's why I wanted to have you on here, to get this out to as many people as we possibly could. But you said something too that I was thinking about when you talked about employees being able to read their contracts and military being able to read their contracts. And unfortunately, because this is personal accountability that people need to take. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, we live in a world where we don't even read the updates on our phones and stuff anymore. We just click agree and go about our day. And that's on us. Yeah. We need to take the time and take the personal interest. So hopefully with what you're about to share, it'll help people, inspire people to do just that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the affidavit process. So like I mentioned before, when you start to understand and learn, and what I would say to your viewers is what was eye-opening for me wasn't learning about affidavits. What was eye-opening to me was actually reading my state's law as it's written, reading my criminal code, reading the criminal process, the criminal procedure in my state. And it's shocking to me when I read that, and you actually start to learn and understand that these people that are public servants, i.e. the police officers, the public servants of that nature, prosecutors, judges, and others, they don't even follow the law because it takes too much time oftentimes. So if they don't follow the law, either because they're negligent or they're just ignorant of the law, then it's up to us to know the law and to force them to be accountable to the law.
Yes.
No man or woman is above the law, period. And I don't care how much money you have or what political position you hold. We are a nation of laws. President Trump has said this many times before. We are beholden to God and to the laws, and the ultimate law is God's law. And God's law here on earth is what is commonly known as the common law. And common law is just common freaking sense, people. That's all it is. Just be good to your neighbor.
Yeah.
You do you, let them do them. It's none of your business what they want to do with their lives. It's none of their business to want to know what you're doing with your life. So just let them be them and move on. But the problem is that the government has gotten so big that they think they have to tell us how to live our lives. So the first step in addressing this problem is knowing what an affidavit is, how it's to be used, and ultimately what's the end game with that affidavit. So let's just talk a little bit more about this. First thing I want people to understand is we need to know about trusts. And when I'm talking about trust, I'm not talking about the trust that I have in another man or a woman. I'm talking about the trust in a legal sense of the term. So a trust is an arrangement whereby a person, a trustee, holds property as its nominal owner for the good of one or more of the beneficiaries. And so now a lot of people are saying, okay, why are you talking to us about trust when it comes to affidavits? Well, the reason behind that is we need to understand the answers to these questions. What's the property that's in this trust? What is this trust? Who is or who are the trustees? And who are the beneficiaries? So to really understand that, we got to know that the trust I'm speaking of, bless you, the trust I'm speaking of is the Constitution. So the Constitution was established for the benefit of one or more people, all of us, right? So the public servants are the trustees who are in charge of managing this trust, and we, the people, are the beneficiaries. So when you have that firm understanding and you know, hey, wait a minute. Whoa, wait a minute. So I'm actually in charge? Yeah. Yes, you are. And they cannot push you around just because they want to or they're trying to. They can only push you around if you allow them to. So this is where it becomes very important that we understand where we are in the pecking order.
Yes.
So I showed this. You may remember this slide.
Yep.
We got to talk about status. What is our status? Where are we on the list? And if you look at this list here, the very first is God or our creator. God/creator. I realize not everyone is a believer in God. That's totally fine. But you were created somehow.
Yeah.
Somehow you got here and you were endowed with certain unalienable rights just because you were born on this planet. So our creator, God, created man or a woman, men and women. And we are all created equal. Okay. We are number 2. So everything that we create is below us. You guys may have heard the term that the creation can never be greater than the creator. So we as men and women can never be greater than God. And government that we create should never be greater than us as we, the men or the women. Is that what we're seeing today?
No.
They want us to believe that government is all powerful and that it has the ultimate authority. It does not. We, the people, do. And this is where, when you understand all of these titles here, you understand where you are. And when you walk into one of these courts and you accept one of these titles, you'll unknowingly waive all of your rights as a man or a woman. So until we understand that, and until we quit letting these courts bully us and push us around, nothing will change.
Yeah.
Nothing will change. And that's why you can see by on number 5 there, the titles of any kind. I've got judge, attorney, defendant, plaintiff, police officer, clerk of the court, governor, lieutenant governor, taxpayer, resident, citizen, person, etc. Okay? These are all titles. Titles mean nothing. But if you choose, everything is a choice. If you choose to move through the court system with one of these titles, then that implies to these people that they can now run you through a different court process. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a bit. But this is why we must never relinquish our status as a man or a woman. You stand on your ground. I am a man. I am a woman. Period. That's it.
And, when you taught this, the thing that came to mind for me too was just like this big push for all these different genders and everything now, and how this seems to be like some other thing to try and take us further away from relinquishing our status, basically.
It's absolutely true, right? I mean, and when I say go look at your state's criminal code or penal code, as it's sometimes called, you're going to be hard pressed to find in any of those laws the phrase man or woman. Or not the phrase, but the word man or woman. The reasoning for that is because a lot of those laws are blatantly unconstitutional. I've taught this before, and I'll continue to teach this. And one of the major reforms I would love to see in every state is get rid of these ridiculous, quote unquote, victimless crimes. There is no such thing as a victimless crime. No victim, no crime, period. That's the way it should work. That's the way it works in common sense. Now, I realize that people's actions, because again, we are a collective of individuals, people's actions sometimes have consequences for innocent people. Totally understandable. And I can understand why certain laws were enacted to help alleviate that problem. The issue is the further and further we push that envelope, the closer and closer we becoming to more like that Tom Cruise character in that movie Minority Report, if you remember that. Okay, it's where they had the pre-crime division, where they had these 3 or 4 individuals who could see the future, and they could see a crime that was about to commit, and so they would stop these crimes.
Yeah, or like thought crimes.
Thought crimes, right?
Yeah.
So if we could all be prosecuted for what we think, every single one of us would be in prison.
Yep.
Every single one of us. So this is that slippery slope we need to avoid. And we do that by getting back to the foundational principles of what our nation was founded on, is that every man and woman is equal under the law, and every man and woman is responsible for his or her own actions. And that's what we have to realize. And so when we go into these courts and you accept one of those statuses, it now changes the jurisdiction that court has over you. So if you accept a lower title, like I mentioned before, you waive your constitutionally guaranteed rights. So these laws, statutes, codes, and ordinances don't apply to a man and woman. They only apply to residents, citizens, drivers of motor vehicles, and so on. So how many of us have been issued a traffic ticket? A speeding ticket or something of that nature there, right? Because, you broke the speeding law, and so now you have to pay a fine. So again, if I'm speeding, let's say that the speed limit is 40 miles an hour, and I'm doing 51, I'm speeding, clearly, and a sheriff's deputy or a police officer catches me and gives me a ticket. If there's nobody on the road for miles, have I hurt anyone?
No. As
a result of that? So then why is he issuing me a ticket? So when you look at things, it's really, there's no other way to explain it. It's just a grand extortion scheme. There's no other way to explain that. So this is why you have to understand that if there's no victim, there's no crime. The other thing you have to understand too is that, and I actually had this, I never changed this presentation from last time, but you have to understand that here, not only in Ohio, but wherever you are, your city, your borough, your township, your village, whatever it may be, those are all corporations, in addition to the county and in addition to the state. And any county or state organizations are all set up as corporations. So if you do a search for these online, you're going to find they have a Dun & Bradstreet corporation number. Dun & Bradstreet is kind of like the business credit profile for businesses. So it's kind of like the Experian or Equifax for businesses. So they monitor and take a look at every business's transaction, and they give them a credit score accordingly. They're all going to have a number there. So they're all corporations. And it talks about how they have sales in excess of X amount of millions of dollars each year. Oops. Sorry, not sure what happened there. So what happens there then is that now these cities, these towns, these organizations are all corporations. And so for them, in order to impose their statutes, codes, and ordinances on you as a man or a woman, you have to agree to be, quote unquote, an employee of that corporation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because these statutes, codes, and ordinances, they apply to them. So this is where it's important to understand the differences there. You guys also have to understand, you asked the question, what's my definition of a mandate? The very last thing there, the government, people in the government cannot mandate your rights away, but they can if you consent to it. So if you agree to move through their process unknowingly or unwittingly, they can mandate your rights away. Mm-hmm. This is why we must understand where we stand as men and women. We've already talked about this. Don't do harm to your fellow man, period.
Yeah.
Just be good people. Be good people.
Treat others how you want to be treated.
Exactly. So what do we do when we've been harmed? We send the offending party affidavits. So an affidavit is merely your unequivocal, undeniable truth. That's all it is. I've often said it's out of court sworn testimony. So in order to understand the power of affidavits, you have to understand some common law maxims of law. A maxim of law is just an eternal truth. It's known. It makes common sense. It makes sense. So the first one I have there is that all are equal under the law. I mean, does anybody disagree with that? I've not found anybody yet. Nope. All right. So truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. So I can get up here and I can say, well, this is the 100% God's truth. And then, Bill here, he can say, no, that's not true. I believe it's this. So now we're going back and forth. But if I write it down on a piece of paper and I swear before a notary public that it's true, now I'm saying to Bill, hey, Bill, if you're telling me this is untrue, then I am willing to go to jail. And if you can prove it's untrue, I will go to jail. So that's the power that these have. So this is why an unrebutted affidavit stands as truth in commerce. So you would serve your affidavit on the offending party. If they choose not to rebut your affidavit, meaning they issue their own affidavit, challenging your points, point for point, then that affidavit now stands as fact. 100% God's truth. An unrebutted affidavit becomes the judgment in commerce. This is where the rubber meets the road. And he who does not repeal a wrong when he can, occasions it or agrees to it. So this is why when these public servants, these school board members, these city workers, these police officers, I mean, any of them, when you serve them affidavits, they're probably just going to be like, whatever, this guy's an idiot. And I'm seeing it. But that's to their detriment, because this is another maxim of law that will hold up in court. No court and no judge can overturn, disregard, or abrogate somebody's affidavit of truth. The only one who has any capacity, right, responsibility, or knowledge to rebut your affidavit of truth is the one who was adversely affected by it. It's their job, it's their right, it's their responsibility to speak for themselves, to issue their own affidavit, because no one can speak it for them. No one else can know what your truth is or has the free will responsibility to state it. It's your job. You guys, this is very powerful information. When you learn this process and you learn how to effectively write an affidavit, and we've got plenty of templates that we share with people, and you serve these affidavits on the offending party, 99.99997% of the time, that offending party ignores it. And that's to their detriment. Yeah. I do need to make a couple of things clear here. They are under no obligation to reply to your affidavit. Even if you put in here, if you don't agree to this, if you don't reply back, you agree to this. It's important that verbiage is there, but there is no law that will force that man or woman to reply to you. And just because you have an unrebutted affidavit doesn't mean you can run down to the sheriff's department or to the county recorder and place a lien on that person's property. And if you do that, that's a one-way ticket to jail real quick. Yeah. So just don't do that. Okay. I'm not advocating for that. The reason why we use affidavits is we now take this, we're building our case, because our next step that we're going to do here is we're going to take that affidavit, because again, it's out of court sworn testimony. And then when we file in a federal court or even in a state court for that matter, our affidavits are submitted as exhibits, as evidence. Say, hey, Mr. Judge or Mrs. Judge, we tried to seek a redress of our grievances. We submitted affidavits. Mm-hmm. We gave them time to rebut our affidavits. They chose not to. We did everything we could to seek a redress of our grievance before we came here to petition the court. Now I'm petitioning the court, as is my right per the First Amendment. Okay? This is where it's crucial that we know and understand these things. So normally we have people I can ask questions on. It's like, does this make sense? But I'm hoping this makes sense. And if anybody has more questions, I have my website and stuff too.
Yeah, but I mean, one question that I would have right now is just like, this process covers everything every scenario that I brought up earlier, right? If your kids are in the school system and, the school board's maybe enforcing things you don't agree with, if you could this be used against your, employer in the process of avoiding the mandate?
Sure.
Or even a service member in the military. I mean, I think that might get trickier there.
Yep.
But
no, I mean, you absolutely can. I mean, what I've got up on the screen here is just the basic process. You serve the offending party your affidavits, and it's really a packet of information. There's the Affidavit of Status, which rebuts any presumption of jurisdiction over who you are. There's the Affidavit of Fact, or the Affidavit of Truthful Fact, which is what happened. And you can also serve a notice of claim. Sometimes you'll get when you serve this packet on people, sometimes you'll get a resolution to your problem because you served that notice of claim. Some states have laws in place that if you serve a notice of claim, that you can get that they will pay that claim if they've determined in their investigation that their public servant didn't follow the law correctly. So if they don't, and they continue to operate in the ways they're not supposed to, your next step would be to file criminal complaints. I mean, people probably, I didn't know this, but every state has a law that if a man or a woman submits a criminal complaint, a sworn criminal complaint, again, sworn affidavit, that I know that this man or woman committed this crime, they did this crime against me, you submit that criminal complaint to a district attorney or even to a magistrate, which is a judge. Any of your local state district courts, or whatever they're called here, any one of those judges has an obligation to take that criminal complaint and give it to one of their panel judges. And those panel judges, like in Utah, there's 5 judges that sit on a grand jury panel. Those 5 judges would hear sworn testimony from somebody who submitted a criminal complaint, and then they would determine if a grand jury should be impaneled. And if a grand jury is impaneled and the grand jury finds that, yes, this information is enough, then they would issue an indictment for that man or woman's arrest. I mean, you can see how this process goes. I don't think people knew this.
Yeah.
This is a citizen's arrest. It's exactly what it is.
And like we've seen like the examples out there with some of the schools, like where, teachers are, enforcing the masks on the kids in class, even like going as far as taping the masks. And I mean, all kinds of ridiculous stuff we've seen. The parents can actually do this process and hold those people accountable. Absolutely.
You can. Any man or woman that's in public service, or even anybody for that matter, if they're violating the law, and they're violating the law, you can do this. You can do this to anyone. But quite often we see these public servants are the individuals who are violating the law on a more frequently basis. The third step here that I'll just mention real quick is if you don't see a redress of your grievance from step 1 and step 2, step 3 is to file a court case in federal court. This is not as hard or as scary as it sounds. It's actually fairly simple. And what I'm teaching people is that, and I need to clarify here, I have a loving term for attorneys. And I need to be more specific here. Not all attorneys across all the professions in law are bad people. There are a lot of good people that actually got into that profession because they want to help folks. When I refer to attorneys, I'm talking about litigation attorneys. So civil litigation, defense attorneys, prosecuting attorneys. Those individuals, from my experience and from what I have seen, are not taught how to properly adhere to the law and the rules. They're taught how to win cases. Mm-hmm. And what you guys don't know or may not realize is that every single judge that's sitting behind a bench and wearing a black robe, they do not know every single law that is on the books. So if an attorney comes into a courtroom and files a motion with that court and he finds all this stuff to back up his argument, the judge is like, well, yeah, this sounds right. I'm going to go ahead and award this based on this. The judges aren't going to do the homework for you. That's not their job. Their job is to quote unquote be an arbitrary referee. They're just supposed to apply the rules as they know them. Now, it's up to us to point out the fact that, hey, this attorney is trying to pull one over on the court, and they're not doing this according to the rules. As is the
It's up to
case.
us to know the rules properly.
Exactly. I've got a case that I'm moving through the federal court right now, and I'm going up against a seasoned attorney. She's been practicing law for over 20 years, and she violated more than half a dozen rules. And I pointed that out clear as day. So there's absolutely no way that because I pointed out the rules that she's broken, there's absolutely no way the judge can issue a ruling in her favor. And if the judge does, well, then I know the judge is compromised, but I have a redress for that. I can petition the Supreme Court. I can petition an appellate court to overturn that decision. As long as you have the law and the rules on your side, you will prevail. So what people need to understand is I hear this all the time. Oh, the courts are so corrupt and this is corrupt. Listen, the courts are not corrupt. Who's corrupt are the individuals running those courts.
Yeah.
And if you find that is the case, you get it on the record, you point out the laws that they're breaking, and then you move that case up to a higher level court. At some point somewhere, there's going to be a judge somewhere that says, whoa, we got a rogue judge here. We need to rein this guy back in. Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go through too much more of these other slides here just because we don't have much time left, but we're talking a little bit more about, what the affidavit of status is. It puts it on the record that we are asserting our status as a man or a woman. We're not any of the titles that people in the government and corporations want us to assume. So this is a brief snippet of what it looks like. The next ones are affidavit of fact. These are the real facts, like we talked about before. This is where we put the truth as we know it on the record. And once we get that on the record, like I said before, if that man or woman does not rebut this affidavit is gospel truth. Now, it doesn't mean anything at that point. Please do not get me wrong. I get a lot of questions on my Telegram group. It's like, well, hey, I served them affidavits. They didn't reply, so can I go file a lien? Or what can I do next? I was like, no, you cannot.
Yeah.
Okay, don't do that. You must, listen, the most powerful order in the world is a court order. Go to the court. Get that court order. Now, I'm going to talk about a process that involves maybe 3 to 4 months total. I mean, what a lot of people think when they hear about, oh, geez, go to court. You're talking being drawn out for 6, 7, 8 months or years or however long.
Yeah.
That's just not true. And it's been done like that because these lawyers, like I talked about, these civil litigation lawyers, these defense attorneys, these prosecutors, they like to drag cases out as long as they can because it means more money for them, more billable hours. So that's why we have to get the real facts into the case. It gives you an idea of what one looks like there. So let's go back real quick and talk a little bit more about about what to do with the vaccine mandate. So I'm going to share this other thing here. Go ahead and pull that one up. It's kind of hard to see here. Let me see if I can blow it up a little bit. Let me go over here this way. There we go. Okay. So what I've got here is an affidavit of declination for offer of vaccine product. There was a young woman who was a nurse, from my understanding, who was, I believe, in Texas somewhere. Her employer came to her and said, hey, you're going to have to get the vaccine. Otherwise you won't be employed. She says that's not okay with me. So she took the time to come up with a declination of offer for vaccine product. And she shared it out for everybody else to use. And so I'm using this to get this out to as many people as possible. The only changes I did is I added it as an affidavit, which makes it even stronger because now this is my 100% gospel truth. And essentially, it comes down to asserting your rights as a man or a woman. So again, I am a man. Okay. I retain the right to decline all attempts to access, influence, and or otherwise alter any and all of my God-given biological material. Number 4 is my favorite. I require that any and all products offered to me by my employer be both entirely retrievable from and also removable in its entirety from my body, person, and manhood, womanhood. Okay.
Wow.
This nurse, when she shared this document with her employer not only backed off the mandate, they gave her special accommodations.
Wow.
So it is possible. There are other documents as well that I've been working on and that others have that go into more detail as far as what can be done and how you can assert your rights. But that's essentially it. So in a nutshell, what we have is we have the process and we have how to move through that process. So really where people need to go next is they need to learn the court system. They need to learn how to, after you've done your affidavits, after you've submitted your declination offer, if your employer is still coming after you and saying, hey, you still have to do this, you do have legal recourse. You have rights.
Okay.
But you have to know how to do them. And so there's this course, if you want to share that screen there. This is a must-do, howtowinincourt.com. Okay. This is a course that was written by an attorney who was practicing law for 35 years. His name is Dr. Frederick Graves, a fantastic individual, a very caring individual. He actually lives just up north in Michigan.
Okay.
He is willing to help anybody who purchases this course. It's $250, one-time fee. But he puts this information so simple and so easy to understand that in his words, an 8th grader can figure it out.
All right, good. I have a chance.
Okay, we do. This is by far one of the best courses that I've ever taken to learn about how the courts work, what's a motion, what's a deposition, how to conduct an interrogatory. That's a hard word to say. How to write an effective pleading, how to submit for discovery. I mean, all of these things. So these are the things that can be done. And he has little strategies in there that talks about, hey, if you're in this situation, this is what you want to do. I mentioned earlier that there was a district court judge in Washington, D.C. that stopped the mandate from Biden. Well, it's because individuals filed a petition for a preliminary injunction. And an injunction is, like I mentioned before, it's getting a court order to tell someone to stop doing something.
Yeah.
He talks about all of that. So those of you who are being threatened with your job, if you submit your affidavits, if you submit your declination of offer and they're still forcing you, or heaven forbid, they actually do fire you, you have recourse in a court. A lot of people say, well, gosh, I might have recourse, but I don't have 2 or 3 years to wait for a decision. You don't have to wait 2 or 3 years. If you learn how to do this yourself, and you know how to do this yourself, and you have a group of people that are behind you willing to help you, there's a couple dozen, if not more, Telegram groups that are out there. The best groups, in my opinion, there's 3 of them, is Alphonse Fagiolo. It's Alphonse, Alphonse, last name Faggiolo. Alphonse Fagiolo. And then this course here, Jurisdictionary, he has a Telegram group as well. Then there's the Law Society with Randy Kelton down in Texas. And then I have my Telegram group. It's Affidavits 101.
Yeah.
You join any or all of those groups and you post all of your stuff, you will get an answer. I mean, it's a great, it's not just a group, we're a family.
Oh, yeah.
We're helping people all over the country with their problems. And we talk about our success stories too. It's a lot of fun to see how these things come together and how we can help other people's enrich their lives and give them that knowledge that's been hidden from them.
Yeah, I remember being at the presentation, you put those Telegram channels out, and I've been on Telegram, getting as much truth as I possibly can out there. Started following the ones you talked about, and that's how I was able to reach out and contact you so I could get you here today.
Yep.
So, man. And you must have known what my other question was going to be about, where can people go and learn about their God-given rights? And
here it is.
The course right here.
Here it is. Yep.
So good.
Yep. You guys have to know and understand that the courts have rules. Every state court has rules. Every federal court has rules. And those judges and even the prosecutors that are in those courts are bound by oath to follow them. And if they don't, then you know how to point them out. and you can make them follow them. And if they don't, you can get a court order to hold them in contempt, and you can put them in jail. You and I,
Yep.
anybody watching this can do that.
Wow.
I don't know if people knew that.
No, and I mean, I think, one of the things is like even learning this, I think some people are just, I mean, everything that we've gone through as a nation and what we get bombarded with, the division, the either political parties, now it's like the vax versus the unvaxxed, and liberal, conservative, everything that we've been hit with, everything going on with the schools, everything that, I think everybody's just so in such a state of shock and fear, instead of, we're so far away from faith and empowerment right now.
Yep.
And that we do have the ability. There is, like you said, God-given rights that we have to use.
To your point there, I mean, whether people want to believe this or not, that this nation was founded under the principles of God.
Yeah.
That does not mean it's an organized religion. We need to separate those two. The First Amendment guarantees you a right to practice your religion as you see fit. But just because we see In God We Trust, or One Nation Under God, or all of these things that make mentions to God, does not mean that we are a Christian country. We were founded on Judeo-Christian principles, but it does not mean that we are a Christian country. Now, what it does mean is that if we the people have forgotten our God, we see what happens.
Yes.
We see what happens. Like I said at the beginning, or close to the beginning, those who don't understand history are doomed to repeat it. Need I say more? Look up the Bible, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Look up Noah. Look up Abraham. Look up Joseph of Egypt. I mean, any of those guys in the Old Testament and even in the New Testament.
Yeah.
When the people turned away from God, what happened is the earth was visited with pestilence, with wars, with famine, and we're seeing that today. So I am a firm believer that if we turn our hearts away from God, then we will get what we deserve.
Yeah. And me and a lot of my friends have been talking about, speaking of the Bible, it's like, looking at one of the least read chapters in the Bible, the end, the book of Revelations right now. And it's talk about these mandates. You can't buy or sell or, without accepting this mark, this, vax. It's crazy how everything's looking right now.
Exactly. This is why, if there's one thing I can implore your viewers to do, it would be spend the money, take the time. You can go through this whole course in a weekend, and it's always there for you to go back to. And if you have a situation like, wait a minute, what happened here? I had this question come up. Everything is here for you to learn how to do and how to move a case through the courts. What's amazing between now and 25, 30 years ago is we have all of the legal research at our fingertips. You can find anything you need right here.
Yeah.
Anything you need. You can research Supreme Court case decisions. You can research your own state Supreme Court case decisions. You can research any case law. So you can find how judges interpreted law and ruled accordingly. And this individual that I'm going up against in my case that I have in federal court right now, that's all I did. When she submitted her argument, I looked up the stuff that she was arguing and found it was all garbage, for lack of a better term. It was baseless. She was just basically pulling stuff out of thin air. And I'm like, wow, I guess she thinks this is how this works. And see, if I was just another civil litigation attorney working in a law firm, I would have handed that to a paralegal and said, find a way to get around this. A paralegal doesn't care. They're getting paid by the hour.
Yeah. They
They have no vested interest in the outcome of that case. Whereas where it's mine, or it's ours as a collective, and this is a class action suit that I'm on, I do have a vested interest in the outcome of that case. I do care. So I'm going to take the time to make sure I do it right. And frankly, I'm quite happy. We've been making this woman look like a fool the whole way through. So
good stuff.
So that's what I've got. as Bill will attest to, I do the best I can to come out. I also have another podcast that I do. It's called Crashing Justice. We do stuff through StreamYard as well. I'm going to be doing another broadcast, I believe, next Wednesday at some point in time. So jump on and look for that if you want more information. I'll go into more details on how exactly what documents you can file with your employer if you're being forced to do something you don't want to do, and what the next steps would be and what they look like.
And where can people view your podcast? StreamYard puts it out. Same.
Yep, it's Crashing Justice is the name of the podcast. I believe we're also on
Rumble.
We're on Rumble. We're also on
BitChute.
Oh, geez, it's Cloud Hub. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
We're on Cloud Hub as well.
Okay.
So
yeah.
YouTube is
those backups because YouTube. This one will probably get taken down with some of the things we discussed.
Yeah. YouTube sure likes to censor people because they don't believe in the right to free speech. So, and that's okay. I mean, it's their platform. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. But they also have to be willing to take the responsibility for that, which they're not. So again, all of this comes down to let's get the redress in the courts, and then let's make this happen.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, James. And real quick before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you some of the questions I normally ask my guests that I have on here. Is there a particular song that you feel has inspired you in life that's like a go-to whenever you're just wiped out, feels like the weight of the world's on your shoulders and you need a pick-me-up?
Sure.
What's that?
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
I'll find it for you. Yeah. That's not what I wanted. Let me find it. Oops. Let's see. I wonder if it'll pick up through the microphone here. Let's find out.
Volbeat, huh?
Oh yeah, you like Volbeat?
Yeah. I've seen them live before, so
This is my favorite. This is my favorite song here to really get me into the. I also play this for my daughter's basketball team before her basketball games to get them riled up.
Nice. So Volbeat, The Warrior's Call.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, what is the last book you read?
The last book I read was a book that was written by one of my former state legislators, Steve Christiansen. It was a book on the Constitution. I can't for the life of me remember the title of it, but it was like Understanding Our Constitution and Our Rights or something along that nature. It wasn't very long. He gave me a copy of it when I was at a speaking engagement with him, and I've been reading it as I've been traveling on the airplane.
Okay.
So, and I read a lot of case law and I read a lot of states' laws. So yeah, I'm boring that way.
And then what class that you feel should be mandatory before graduating high school?
Any class that teaches people about the importance of the Constitution and the importance of how to really the jurisdictionary course, how to win in court. I believe that needs to be taught to our high school kids. Our high school kids need to realize that they have rights. They don't have privileges. They have rights. Our government has done a very good job of convincing people that things that are ours by right are actually privileges, and that's just not true. Yeah. So.
Well, remember they used to teach civics back in the day too.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to have fallen to the wayside. And then who are 3 people who've inspired you or you can credit for making you the person you are today?
Well, obviously my mother, number 1. That's made me who I am today. Also, I would credit, obviously my savior. And then also from other individuals that I've been really inspired by is, a number of our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Sam Adams, all those, George Washington, Ben Franklin, you just name them. They're all fantastic individuals. And as I look at what they went through during their day and what we're going through now, I see a lot of similarities. I see, they were willing to give up their lives to have the nation that we have. But see, people don't realize is that they thought that they just took up arms and started rebelling. They didn't do that. They sent representatives to Philadelphia. They sent delegations there to create law and order out of chaos. And then when they had that law and order created, they'd let the king know, hey, your services are no longer required.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, the king didn't take too well to that, which is why he sent over his troops. But you understand that the rest is history. So if we, the people, are upset with what we're seeing, it is not. Now, don't get me wrong. You need to vote. We need to vote. But if you think you're going to get a resolution to our problems through the ballot box, you are woefully wrong. The court is where our theater is. And when I say theater, I'm referring to the theater of war, right?
Yeah.
The court is our battlefield. If we learn how to properly move a cause of action through the court and the law is on our side, we will prevail. There's no questions asked. It might not happen at the level we're in. We might have to appeal it. Heck, you might even have to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. But as long as the law is on your side and you can show that, you will win.
And, you mentioned our founding fathers and stuff, and I believe that it's definitely been by design as well, that how their characters have been attacked and everything now as well, in the media and the schools and everything. It's like everything that's pulling us further away from our creator, for our founders, from our rights, basically.
Exactly.
And then favorite toy as a child?
My Tonka truck. I used to drive that thing all over the place. Remember those old steel Tonka trucks? Dump trucks. Yeah.
Yeah. Take them in the sandbox.
That's right. That's right. I remember having that Tonka truck all over the place when I was a kid.
Oh yeah. And then any message that you have for our military members that are currently serving overseas?
Thank you. Thank you for being willing to put your life on the line, your lives and your life on the line for my right to be able to go to court to get a remedy to my problem. Thank you for doing that from the bottom of my heart. I would also say to you that don't give up hope. Even when hope may seem that it's lost, it's not. There's always hope. There's always someone who's willing there to pick you up. Every man or woman I've ever met that served in the military is one of the most honorable people I've ever met in my life. And I will say that 100%. I've always had such a deep affinity and respect for individuals who have chosen to lay down their lives to serve in what in their minds was their country's best interest. Now, obviously, we understand there are nefarious people that have evil intentions at heart, but that's neither here nor there as far as it's concerned to that. So thank you so much. We love you. We support you. And no matter what happens, we've got your six. We got your back.
Awesome, James. Thanks a lot. And then once again, like I know we've mentioned a couple of ways, but if people want to follow and learn more and follow your journey and learn more about these processes, where would you send them?
The simplest thing to do would be to go to here. I'll just pull it up here so people can see it. I have a website. It's called affidavits101.com, and I'll share that here on the screen so you guys can see. There it is. So this is the website right here, Affidavits 101. We have a step-by-step process right here. We have some resources, some videos. All of my videos that I do with Nissa and Crashing Justice are all here. She posts them all here.
Okay, great.
So you guys can see this is one I did here in Utah recently. This was actually when I was here back in September.
Okay.
So, Alina here, this is my partner in crime. She's really what got the ball rolling in Utah, and she's a big reason why the case we are moving through the federal court right now is where it is, because she has done a fantastic job with that. So I'm doing my best now. This website here is actually maintained by a good friend of mine in Utah, and she's doing the best she can to stay on top of stuff. But here under the resources tab, I try to keep all the information here. Here's our affidavits on Cloud Hub. Here's those other Telegram groups is talking about a warrior calls, common law is another really good one.
Okay.
That's actually Christopher James up in Canada, our neighbor to the north. We have our YouTube series, our Affidavits, our Cloud Hub series. And then we also talk about some other places you can go to find good information. Alphonse has a YouTube channel. Christopher James has a YouTube channel. Really, we just want to make it easy. And then here under the affidavit step-by-step is where you can find a lot of the documents. We have them here in PDF and a Word document. We also have what to do if this happens. We also have a citizen's criminal complaint in a Word document. I'm going to be updating these documents here. I'm going to be adding to these pages here pretty soon the affidavit for declination of offer for these mandated jabs at your employer.
Okay.
So NIST has done a great job of putting, okay, what's the next step? And then here's the video that explains that step. So if you want to look through that, you can.
Great.
Then we talk about here, how we go about filing a federal claim in U.S. District Court. Fill out your claim. I'm actually going to take this off. This is a commercial lien thing, but I've seen too many people have too many issues going that route. It's just safer to just file a complaint in a federal court. I'm going to put that on the website here so that people can see that and use it and utilize it. So this is the simplest, easiest way. If you come up here to the contact page, you can email us, Cloud Hub, Telegram. Here's my Telegram channel. That's the simplest, easiest way. We've got close to 1,200 members in our Telegram channel. I mean, it's growing.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Shared it with quite a few.
It's continually growing, and so I do the best I can to get back to anybody who has questions there. But bear with me; it might take me some time.
Yeah, no, you're very busy.
So,
but all right, well, James, awesome, man. Thank you so much
Yes.
for being on the podcast and helping me get the word out to my listeners. And I know, I want to pray for, pray a hedge of protection over you and your family because you're out there doing this work and traveling and getting the word out, man. So I'm so grateful. And I know you got some more message to share tonight here locally in town. So thanks again for your time. And
thank you.
God bless, man.
Thank you.